Welcome back to another episode of the Players Pars and Pints podcast. Now here is your host, Ryan Watts.
All right, welcome to another edition of Players, Pars, and Pints, brought to you by the Barracks Golf Course, Plattsburgh, New York. For tee times, give us a call, 518-566-7150. And once again, guys, we are blessed to have a guest who is talented across multi-levels. Another one from the great state of Massachusetts, hockey guy, business guy, musician. This guy does a lot of things, and we're happy to have him on the show. So please welcome Chris Ross. Chris, how are you?
Good. How you doing, man? Excited to be on the show.
Oh, pleasure to have you. Pleasure to have you. I mean, you know, looking at some of the stuff that you've done over the course of your hockey career and business career, and most recently as a musician, it's you cover a lot of areas, and very interesting story, my friend. So, why don't we get started? We have a lot of fans here that love the hockey side. So we'll maybe get started a little bit on the hockey side. So, you know, you're originally from Bellingham, Mass. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
All right. So we got to get it out of the way. We're obliged to do this because we record an hour south of the Bell Center in Montreal. So, you know, this household we're Canadiens fans. So I got to assume we're talking to a Bruins guy here.
Oh yeah, I'm a lifelong Bruins fan. But you know what, I've always had a lot of friends that were Canadian fans as well, particularly when I went to, I'm sure we'll get into that, but I went to Mount St. Charles Academy, and it's a legendary hockey high school, legendary coach and Bill Bilal. But Bill Bilal was always a huge Montreal Canadiens fan, and as well as his son Pete Bilal, who I played with, and who's a UMass Boston head coach right now. He's also a huge Canadiens fan, and one of my roommates at Merrimack, Mark Cornforth from Montreal, he got like 6 games with the Bruins, but lifelong Canadiens fan as well. So I'm totally used to it, man. It's all good.
And it's a great rivalry, and I think as you talked about, I mean, over the years, I feel like there's been so much overlap between, you know, the hockey community. It's a great community. It's a small community. And I think of all the sports, it's the one where people seem to be the closest in terms of a network. So I think,
absolutely,
you know, the fans, I think at times might be more heated with each other than probably the players, coaches, and insiders, right, in the game of hockey.
For sure. For sure, yeah. Agree with you.
Yeah, and I think the Bruins, as you look at them right now, I mean, I think this year was an interesting year with some of the dump of players and Marchand leaving. But I think strategically, I mean, do you think it positions them pretty well going forward?
Yeah, I mean, you had to do that. I mean, their whole roster that was, Cup teams of 2011 and 2013 or 14, and when they lost to Chicago, I forget. But and then when they lost to the Blues as well. That roster just, as soon as Patrice Bergeron retired and Chara retired as well, and then you had just Marshy and Pasta left, and every team goes through this. You have to make the call to turn over the team. The Chicago Blackhawks had to move on from Patrick Kane, although he's back again, but apparently, every team has to turn over and go younger at some point.
For sure, and I think it's tough in a city like Boston because Boston certainly expects to win. I think the culture is certainly. I mean, for my money, it's probably the best sports city in the country. When you look at not only collegiate sports but pro sports combined, it's such a great area, to be a fan.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, as a Boston fan, we've had it good for so long that we really can't complain about everything between the Bruins, the Red Sox, the Patriots, the Celtics. They've all won at least one championship in recent history. So it really is a great sports town, and really it's just like when you grow up a hockey guy in the state of Massachusetts and Rhode Island and New England in general. You have so many of your buddies. It just becomes second nature. You have so many of your buddies that end up going to play pro hockey. Like, I had grown up playing with Keith Kachuk at one point. Played with Ian Moran at one point. All these guys are, guys that went to the show and with different teams and stuff. And so you don't even, I guess as a player, you get less territorial, like you said, than you would as a fan, I think,
Yeah, I think so too. And I'll tell you, my daughter has caught on to the whole idea of Boston sports. She's going to be a sophomore at BU this year. So,
oh, nice.
So she's
very cool.
She's a Terrier, and we were lucky enough to go to the championship of the Beanpot game last year. Where BU took down BC. It was quite a battle and such a great atmosphere. So much fun.
Yeah, another guy, Jay Pandolfo. I grew up playing against him and stuff too, and he's done a fantastic job bringing BU back to the to the promised land. Unfortunately for me, while I was an assistant coach at Merrimack in the last few years, they beat us in the Hockey East Championship. Let's see, back at 2023, I guess, in double overtime, and your boy Lane Hudson for the Montreal Canadiens scored the winner of that one. So but BU always has a great team. They always have a ton of talent, and Jay's really done a really great job there as well.
Yeah, I mean it's such a tough squad. And I looked at your year, Merrimack that year, knowing that we were going to talk, and you ran into a team that had Ottinger and net, Hudson. I mean, just fully
Yep.
stacked, right? So, but you gave them all that they could handle, and so I had this slated for a little later in the show, but seeing you hit on that season, maybe we could touch base on this a little bit. So, talk to me a little bit about how you became a musician. Were you always interested in music? Did you play in high school, or did that come later? How did that come about?
Yeah, so it came later. It came in college. Although my dad was a kind of a amateur guitarist and singer as well, and as a kid he would strum and sing the Beatles to me. So I got a little bit of exposure when I was a kid, but never interested myself in taking lessons or singing. And then there's a couple different stints in school where I sang in the choir, or I think I tried trumpet for a year or something like that had a little bit of musical interest in me. But really what happened was one of my roommates at Merrimack at the time, his name was Matt Gallo. He wasn't getting a lot of playing time, and he transferred mid-year to Salem State. And I got one of my other friends, moved in with me, who was a non-hockey guy, but unbeknownst to me, he was a great guitarist. And then we would go out to the bars, and he heard me sing karaoke one night. He's like, "Dude, you have a really good voice. Let's form a 2-man acoustic band." And when you're in college and you're thinking, okay, this can't be a bad thing. It'd be probably a good way to get some girls' attention and stuff. So
absolutely, yep.
So let's do it. And then my junior year after hockey season, we started playing some shows. And then that summer, I lived I was taking some summer classes up at Merrimack between my junior and senior year. And I just told my roommate Jamie, Giordano was his name, and I said, "Hey, I'm so bored of just sitting up here singing when we play. Can you teach me guitar?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll teach you this summer." And I just worked hard at it all that summer. So in between my junior and senior year is when I really fully learned how to play guitar. And then right away I started writing songs and stuff like that. Somehow that part came easier to me than even just the learning guitar part and stuff. But it's kind of a wild, bizarre story, but that's how I kind of got into it.
Yeah, and I think so. If you talk about Merrimack around that time that you played BU for the title, the year before, the program had a pretty significant loss in the loss
yes.
of a great man, correct?
Yes, yeah. So that was that was actually that same year. It was the fall of that 2023 year, Josh Chiacco, really talented and good assistant coach, really great recruiter, really good hockey player himself, played at UNH, had some time in the East Coast League, but was just really good with the boys, and it was just such a shock. It was we hadn't even started. It was literally the week before I think we opened up against Clarkson and St. Lawrence that weekend, and on the road up there, and it happened right at the beginning of that week, and it just out of nowhere, just one of our other assistant coaches, found him in his apartment because he didn't show up to practice that day, and we all started getting worried and stuff. And I went home that night after practice, and we were all talking about, like, geez, I hope Josh is okay, like, da da da. But like that night, Coach Bohr called me and gave me the news, and it was just really devastating. And it took us a while. Like we I don't know, we somehow split that weekend, but really that event was the catalyst of bringing together. It instantly turned us into a family, and I've never been a part of a team that was that close as a player or as my other coaching stints. I've never been a part of a team that was that close, and that was absolutely the secret sauce of why we were so good that year. Yes, it was a little bit of a Cinderella story. We made it to the Hockey East Finals, but we finished in second place that year. We were right on BU's heels for the Hockey East regular season title. I think we had actually beat them 2 out of 3 games in the regular season as well. So it was one of those magical years that what started out as a tragedy brought us all together as a family, and it was just a really powerful thing. And that's of course the reason why I wrote that song. That I just released, that's has some of the footage from that year and stuff. But yeah, it's just I think of Josh every day of my life. I still think of him, and the biggest thing with him is he was such a funny dude, and he was so good in the coach's room because of that too, that he just kept things light all the time, and it was just really fun being around him. Whether we were on the bench for a game or in practice, he had me constantly laughing, and that's what it's all about.
No, and that's interesting, and I would encourage everyone listening, man, check out the YouTube video of that song.
Yeah, it's called "We'll Find a Way." It's on Spotify. The band's name is called Ross and Company. That's my band's name. So if you look up Ross and Company, it's on Spotify or iTunes as well. Look up "We'll Find a Way." There's a video of it. The video of the songs on YouTube as well. And we feature Josh on the song, and there's a lot of good footage from that season as well on the song and the video.
Yeah, and I listened, and I tell you could tell the emotion in that song, and the lyrics for you. That had to be, people deal with grief in different ways. So as you're inspired to write the lyrics, how long did it take you to kind of to maybe sit down and come up with what you ultimately recorded?
Yeah, it's funny. I just heard an interview, and not to bring up the whole Coldplay controversy and stuff that happened. I was at the show I was at that show, but the one before, the night before at Gillette. So I didn't actually see it live. But anyway, I was listening to an interview with Chris Martin. I think he was on Howard Stern or whatever, and he was talking about how he wrote "Yellow." And there's probably like a handful of songs that I've written that I've literally it took me maybe 5 to 10 minutes to write. It just I feel like it just came through me. Maybe it came from the other side, or it just gets downloaded into your brain, and it just really just comes out really quick. And that was one of those songs. So maybe Josh helped me out in that one. But it took me like maybe 5 to 10 minutes to write. It was crazy.
That's incredible. I mean, do you keep, do you have something that you have with you at all times? So if an idea strikes, you just take some notes, or?
Yeah. So I work from home. So, my professional career is I'm a head of talent acquisition for a company called International Paper. I used to work for Johnson & Johnson too in the talent acquisition space. So, I manage a team of recruiters that fill positions and all that good stuff. So, from my J&J days to now, I work remote. Most of the time, I do travel a lot for work as well. But so when inspiration hits, sometimes I could be eating lunch in between calls or whatever. I have my guitar always handy, and the cell phone has a recording mechanism on. So sometimes I'll just like have an idea and I'll just record even 10 seconds of a song or 30 seconds of a chorus of a song, and at least I have that. But in this instance, it was in the middle of the day, I was working, I was thinking about Josh, and it was around lunchtime, it just poured right out of me, everything, verse 1, verse 2, chorus, bridge, like, all the aspects of the song just kind of poured out of me. But
no, that's tremendous, and again, check that out, everybody. It's such a great song, and captures, I think, the moment and the emotion of that event and that season, for you and the entire group, and you can hear it pour out of you. So well done.
Yeah,
I thought that was tremendous. So if people want to catch you out, you do a couple different things, right? Do you play some acoustic shows as well as full band shows right now?
Yeah. I do acoustic and full band. We're winding down. Our summer's always my busiest season, and it's been like that for a while. I'm not currently coaching right now. But I would always make winter season, hockey season, and summer season, music season, and it's still kind of like that. These days, I'm from a hockey perspective, I'm just more helping Merrimack out with alumni stuff and with this whole NIL and the way things are changing. Just trying to help Scott Bork out with devising ways that we could potentially talk to alumni or find other mechanisms to raising money for NIL and stuff to stay competitive with the BUs and the BCs and stuff like that. So I do still do quite a bit with Merrimack, but I haven't. I've taken last year was my first year in probably like 15 to 20 years that I didn't coach, and it was because I took this head of talent acquisition job with International Paper. It's more of a it's a job that just takes up more of my time and stuff like that. And really, like on the Division I side, they've kind of gotten. Gone away with the volunteer assistant. The volunteer assistant was a perfect thing for me, so I could keep my regular job and do my passion of coaching hockey as well. When the NCAA said, "Hey, we'll allow you to have 3 paid assistants," that kind of did away with that. Unfortunately for me, but it's good for all the D1 programs out there. They can have 3 guys out on the road recruiting, and they're doing a bunch of different things that like a normal assistant coach will do. The volunteer, you were kind of, just regulated to, helping on the day-to-day operations of the team, which is what I love the best at this stage of the game. I'm not a young buck anymore, so, if I was in my early 20s still, I wouldn't mind being on the road and in Alberta and BC and recruiting, guys in the USHL, and it's even crazier now at the CHL stuff. And it opens up a lot more scouting needs for these programs as well. So it makes total sense. It's crazy how quickly the college game has changed, but it is what it is. So.
And I was going to touch on that with you, and I think the NIL is such an interesting thing, and it's crept a little bit into Division III as well. So. Being around the Plattsburgh State program as much as I am, I do the PA, for the men's side for a side job for fun, and love being around the program. And I think it's trying to figure out how does that get incorporated at the D3 level, and there's so many challenges to it. From whether you can offer international players, really aren't eligible from what I think we understand at this point, and there's so many things that are going to be tough to figure out, and you said like hockey has changed so much, and the competitive level in our conference is going up tremendously as Hobart joins this year. They've won the last 3 national titles, so it doesn't get any easier, for the Plattsburgh State side. So I think I agree with you, trying to figure out what that right mix is of recruiting, and how do you compete against schools, that maybe are a little bit ahead on the NIL program or offering more money is certainly a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least for you guys, and like, I spent some time coaching with Neil Mulcahy at Southern New Hampshire University. I spent a few years at University of New England, a very powerful D3 program as well. Kevin has done a really great job in that program. At the very least, and I've talked to Kevin, I've talked to other people in the D3 world. at the very least, the talent pool is tremendously opened up for you guys. And I have to believe that some USHL players are probably in play for you guys now in D3, because that talent pool of the CHL, that's a whole nother several hundred people worth of hockey talent out there that are D1 possibilities as well. And so it's going to creep into the USHL, I think, and I think for sure it opens up every NOL player to all the D3 programs. So at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a big win. I think D3 hockey gets even better. It was already getting really good. I think it gets even better now, and I think there's that razor line between a third or fourth line D1 player and a first and second line D3 player is even thinner than it used to be now. So I think you guys are going to see some good hockey from here on out.
For sure. I'm looking forward to I don't want summer to be over because, I'm an avid golfer and not looking forward to that winding down. And up here, the season is short, but definitely looking forward to hockey. It's with kids getting on campus next week, and some of them are here already. You can kind of tell there's some excitement in the air for it. So, but
I've heard a lot about Platy hockey. Through Neil, constantly. Talked about his glory days at Platy, but then I had the chance to work with the legend himself, Mr. Bob Emery, at Merrimack for 3 years, and Emma has become a real good buddy of mine too. We talk weekly, and have to bring his name up when it comes to Platy hockey. Emma talks about it. And just the memories that he has all those years as well. So I would be remiss if I didn't bring his name up here. But
for sure, the legend himself, and I think Steve Moffat, the head coach, really, worked a lot with Emma, and Emma really helped him, become the coach that he is now, and now he's sort of taken the torch and having some success there. So I think it's great. So I think what we have to do in that regard then is, if we take your current real life job, you have a location in Ticonderoga, I believe, international.
Yes, in Rochester.
So Ticonderoga from here is about an hour. So I think maybe a little work trip, and then you make your way up here for a weekend of hockey with the boys. I think that could be that could be some fun. That sounds good.
And then Emma can boondoggle that he's scouting up in the queue. And maybe he can meet us too. So
well, and there's a couple of spots that I know that have some acoustic shows every now and then. A couple of breweries, so we might be able to turn this into a trifecta for you.
All right. That sounds like a plan, man. I like it.
Yeah. So we're good on it. So maybe we'll just touch on a little bit of your hockey career before we wrap up with this. But you started at Mount St. Charles, right? Rhode Island. So one of the top programs. So. What do you remember about your experience at that time, and maybe how much different do you think the game was when you were coming through the ranks, there and then on to Merrimack than it is today?
Yeah, much different. I'm only 5'10", but I was a very offensive-minded defenseman. Like, kind of played that game, style of the person that probably style of game was probably like Torrey Krug when he was playing for the Bruins. Just really offensive, jumping in the play all the time. But in that day and age, in that era, it was all about the giant defensemen like Hal Gill and stuff. So when going through Mount St. Charles and stuff at that time. They'd had Brian Lawton, who was the first American number 1 overall pick in 1983. They had all the way up to like Garth Snow. Was when I was a freshman, he was our senior. He was the senior goalie for Mount back then. He had a really good long NHL career. Was the Islanders GM for a while. And then it went all the way up to like Brian Berard, who's another first round draft pick, and Matt Schneider, who played for the Montreal Canadiens. So lots of legendary guys in high school hockey. Back in Massachusetts and Rhode Island back then was a lot like Minnesota is still today. It was, you went to high school, you played for, Catholic school, prep school, or your public high school, and you probably got noticed from a college right out of high school. So what happened for me is that, I was all state at Mount St. Charles, but I wanted to hold out. You guys are gonna laugh, but like my first like real offer was SUNY Oswego, but I was like, you know what, I'm not. I think I want to try D1, so I did a PG year at Cushing Academy,
Yep.
And then I started getting some D1. Looks at that point, and Merrimack and Northeastern and Colgate actually were the three that were pursuing me the most, and I eventually chose Merrimack. As a Boston kid, kind of surprising because the Northeastern's in the Beanpot and stuff, but I just really fell in love with the Merrimack campus. It was like kind of familiar to me. It was, in a small town. It had that old New England college feel to it, where Northeastern was like in the middle of the city of Boston and stuff. And at the time, that's what I wanted. And Coach Anderson, Ron Anderson, who was the head coach at Merrimack at the time, right away was like, hey, everyone called me Rossi or Roscoe. It was like, Roscoe, we're gonna move you up to forward. I was like, I've never played forward in my life. He's like, I know, but you're 5'10" and you can skate. You can skate pretty well. So we're gonna move you up at forward. I think it's gonna be a good match. And then what ended up happening in my career, to be honest with you, is I ended up becoming that like classic utility guy. I could play. I probably would have been like that 19th guy that all college rosters have now. Back then, you couldn't dress that. So I was always like the sixth defenseman and the fourth line center, third line center. So I would, in the middle of the game, I'd go back and forth, playing forward and playing defense. Someone defenseman would go out on injury. Roscoe, you're back on D for the rest of the game. And I was kind of a luxury utility player from that perspective. And looking back, that absolutely helped me in my coaching career because I really learned the game from a bunch of different angles. Literally the only position I never played was goalie. So that really helped me in my my coaching career. As I was finishing up at Merrimack, I got a sports hernia my senior year. So after the I think it was the second or third game, I was basically out for the season. And so, I had some offers to go play at the coast and stuff. And I think at that time I was just, feeling my injury, feeling kind of a little bit burnt out and decided I wanted to kind of pursue more like the coaching aspect. And that's when I started getting into coaching, doing skills with like Rob Barletta and Paul Vincent and a couple different outfits. And then I jumped in and started coaching high school, and I was a high school hockey coach in Massachusetts at a town called Medway High School, and that was really my first kind of start of the run of me being a coach.
Excellent, yeah. And I think if you talk about your coaching experience and now translating to talent acquisition, do you find the skills of recruiting people and communicating with people sort of translate between the business world and the hockey world? Absolutely, and I used to talk about this with Emma all the time in the coaches' room. Emma's all about having leadership discussions and stuff like that. And he bounced a couple of really good books my way, like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, a really good book. And so, bottom line is, and maybe you feel this way too, in your athletic career and how it guides you today. But like, I can honestly say that I learned more on the ice and in the locker room about life and leadership, grit, staying with the process, all the things that make people successful is really what I took with me into my business career and what I take with me now as a leader. I had some great mentors from Coach Bilal up to, my last stint with coaching with Coach Bork and being with Emma too. And you end up just learning stuff and taking stuff from each of those mentors. And so me as leading a team of talent acquisition professionals,
I sometimes, fashion myself more like I'm a hockey coach, and I joke around. I call myself Ted Lasso to my team, because I try to infuse a lot of positivity, and that's always been kind of my role. And it's something that you definitely learn as an assistant coach in college, to kind of be that guy with the boys and be able to joke around with them, and keep it light, but at the same time, be a great teacher and teach them things that are going to make them successful. It's just, so that really translates into the business world as well. So, most of everything I've learned, it's, I can give credit to hockey and good mentors I've had in my life. But
I agree. And I think one of the things that I look at, and sometimes in this area, it's not as great as I like, is youth sports. And, I love when you have strong leadership at the youth sports level, because I just think you're instilling a skill set that will be so diverse and valuable, as your life goes on if you play sports. So I'm just,
absolutely
a huge advocate for that. And, I think whether it's a sports team or a business or a restaurant, I think a guy like you or a guy like me that have been leaders, you go to that establishment, you can tell the minute you walk in if there's good leadership there. It just, it oozes out, and whether it's, the guy wearing the C on the ice or the general manager or the director or the C-level guy, it translates into success. So I think that's, it's such a cool thing to see.
100%. And every successful team I've been on, you mentioned the C's and stuff. I mean, you have to have good leadership on your teams. You have to have good, you're only as good as your, I have 3 managers that manage the actual recruiters on my team. And so, I'm very blessed to have 3 really good leaders. We had some that year we went to the Hockey East Finals. Man, did we have some really good leadership on that team. And it wasn't just the captains of the team, it was like people that weren't wearing letters as well. Really were just natural born leaders, and just it makes a difference. And you're right, like it just oozes on down to everyone from the second, third, fourth line players to the equipment manager, or in a company to your lowest, newest recruiter that just graduated from college that doesn't know what the heck they're doing. So you're absolutely right, man. For sure.
Yeah, it's such an important part of life and success, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Chris, it has been an absolute pleasure, my friend. So one more time, if people want to check your band out or find your music, they can find it on Spotify.
Look up Ross and Company.
Yep.
In that I have 3 new releases out there. I'm about to release another song here in the next couple of weeks, probably. And I'm working on a new website right now. So I don't have that to give out right now. But really, just get on Spotify. And if you look up Ross and Company, we'll find a way. It'll lead you to my YouTube channel, and you can kind of watch some of those music videos, like that one I did about the Merrimack Hockey Squad and Josh.
No, and I recommend everyone check that out. It's fantastic. So Chris, we call the show Players, Pars, and Pints, and we've covered a lot of it. But if we have you up here and doing an acoustic set, what's your craft beer of choice? Do you have one?
These days I'm trying to cut down on the carbs, so I'm more like a tequila and soda or a Tito's and soda type of thing these days. But in the summertime, you'll catch me drinking a Corona and stuff. But really, back in the day, Guinness was always my favorite go-to. I'm an Irish guy at heart and been to Ireland, and so I love me a good pint of Guinness for sure. So it probably would be a Guinness I'd pick, I guess.
Excellent. Oh, that sounds good. I think we could raise a glass to that, my friend, and we'll have to.
All right.
We've got to arrange that trip. I think that would be an awesome time if we could get you up this way and do a hockey.
Absolutely. I would love that. I would love that. Do you guys have UNE coming up there at all? Are they on the schedule this year?
I don't know. I'll have to look. We had them up last year for a tournament.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yep. So they were definitely, and I think they're a good team. Good barometer for us to measure against, because, like I said, they're a quality program. They could really skate. So I think it gave us sort of an indication of where we were at that time of the season. With what competitive level we had against them. So. Check the schedule and see.
We'll try to figure out. We'll try to figure out a weekend for sure, man.
No, that would be fantastic. So once again, everybody, this has been Chris Ross. What a pleasure to have him on. Again, this is Players, Pars, and Pints. We're brought to you by the Barracks Golf Course, Plattsburgh, New York. You can get a tee time, 518-566-7150. Thanks so much, and we're going to talk to everyone soon. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Players, Pars, and Pints podcast. Make sure to subscribe and check back for future episodes. Also, make sure to follow us on X and Facebook at Pars and Pints. Until next time, everybody.